Okay, it's been at least a couple of days. You're holed up in the house and got nothing to do, right? Well, let's talk about these Chiefs, this virus, and where everything is going with this draft season. Welcome back. This is Going Rogue, and I'm Ryan. We're going to talk about the NFL and the Chiefs here quite a bit today. This is kind of one of my newer ideas, and it's just because I need to do things more in the morning. It's been a tough go lately, trying to get all this stuff done, and so there's a lot going on. We have the Matrix coming. We're going to have the full-on draft guide. If you've missed it so far, the Athletic Matrix is up at rogueapc.com. Use the code RGR20 for a discount. It's great, and that's all the athleticism. The draft guide will have everything else. It'll have production. It'll have all kinds of stats in it, as well as the athleticism put all into one, give you some grades, and a couple of new wrinkles that I'm doing this year to help you figure out where somebody stands in the draft class, which is really the big problem this whole offseason. The draft class is more of a mystery this year than it ever has been before. And that's really where we got to get to, because things are kind of standing on their head right now. The way the process always works is you have area scouts that have certain geographic locations that they have schools to go to. They do that. They get to know the kids, they get to know the coaches, they get to understand what the dynamic is for a certain player at a certain school. And, you hear stories coming off the road, talking to strength coaches, talking to the secretaries in the offices, all kinds of things that give you some insight into who a prospect is, not just what he does on the field. And then you have all the film work. Now, the film work's great. It's obviously the most important thing in trying to evaluate a prospect, because you got to see what they do. You have to know, can Henry Ruggs do X, Y, and Z? Is he just a straight line speed guy? How dedicated is he to the game? It's not just the film review, but what they do on film is really what sets the tone for where they exist in a given team's draft room, in their personnel department. And a lot of times, by the time that the bowl games are over, the board is roughly put together. You have concepts based on film grades that not only the area scouts, but the national scouts have come back together. Groups of people have watched film now. Maybe not the GMs by the time January rolls around, because they're, busy playing their season and managing free agency, managing injury representation and replacement of guys who have to go on IR, et cetera, et cetera. So your scouts have done all that work. They get to that point and they need more eyes on, and you have to go and get to the combine in February. The combine's a big, big deal, because not only if you see a guy on film and he's fast, do you want to confirm that? Do you want to see him run a good time that puts him on par with where you thought he was on film? That's confirmation that you saw what you saw, and it's not a discrepancy in the level of competition that he's playing or something like that. But you also want to see if you miss something. If, because of whatever his role was at his school, in his college career, if there are other physical capabilities that you didn't see on film because he wasn't asked to do something. I think you get some of that from guys like, big wide receivers that become tight ends and the flip-flop. I think you get some of that from guys who run routes from wide receiver and don't come into the slot, but maybe there's a slot guy that can go out there and do that too. There's a lot of things that can be demonstrated just on the physical athleticism that maybe they weren't asked to do in college. On the flip side, there's also those traits that say a guy's explosive at this, he's powerful, especially along the fronts, the lines, the defensive and offensive line. Maybe there's physical capabilities there that the technique hasn't caught up to. Maybe there is a coaching deficiency at whatever school it is, that for whatever reason, it didn't really progress that athlete towards his potential as much as others. So how much of that do you still have? It's about evaluating what he can do in the future, and there is some projection there versus what he did do in college. And that's, quite frankly, sometimes pretty different. Now, all that comes into being if you're at the combine. Now, this combine was a little bit different. This combine, because of the change in schedule, threw a lot of players off. I actually feel like for the majority of athletes, I don't think we got near the times that we would have had they been on the old schedule, something that was comfortable not only for them, but for their people, their managers and agents and trainers, everybody who's had this routine, who knew how to optimize it hour by hour, minute by minute because of experience. So you get a little bit of drag there. Despite that, I think that there were probably a couple of outliers. I think on par, a lot of these athletes are getting a little bit of bump because they didn't do something that brought them down for any reason. They missed a couple of things. A lot of guys didn't even run agility drills. Those two drills, the 3-cone and the short shuttle, are missing on a lot of players. And that has a tendency to even out some of the explosiveness and the long speed. So you don't get that balance. And the interviews, which are so important, especially for teams that don't have a lot of picks, like the Chiefs, you want to get to know a player. You want to know how he works, what his mentality is, how he reacts to stress in different situations. And instead of having 20 minutes, you got 15 minutes this year. You also found out that you weren't going to get as many minutes, not that it matters now, because this virus has showed up and it has thrown the entire process from the combine forward completely out of whack. And this year in particular is going to be tough because there's a lot of kids that haven't been able, or chose, honestly, made a mistake in my opinion, chose not to run at the combine or chose not to do the agility drills like we talked about at the combine. Yes, it gives you a little bit of home field advantage if you wait till your pro day, but do them both. It can't hurt. And I think the guys that skipped on purpose actually hurt themselves because of the rest of this situation. And what we found is a couple of teams, schools got pro days off. Good for them. If you're early in the process, hey, it worked out. Both the Kansas schools got their pro days in. Good for them. That gives you a leg up because you don't have all these other guys who either needed to make that confirmation or maybe had to run for the first time and give the teams a glimpse of what they can do. Maybe they didn't get on the field that much, especially guys that are going to be your day 3 selections. Those are the guys that had the most to gain, and now they don't have pro days. Now, because of the contagiousness of this particular virus, they don't have visits. Teams aren't even working together. That's a whole different scenario we'll talk about in a second. But these players don't have the ability to come in to a team's comfort zone and not only perform physically and show them what they have, show them what kind of athlete they are, they also are missing the opportunity to have a more prolonged interview process, longer than that 15 minutes, which is really key, especially if you're talking about a first-round selection. Teams want to know and have a better feel for that prospect before they go spend that draft pick, that really precious commodity at the top of the draft on somebody. That puts that whole thing out of whack. Yes, you can do Skype interviews. Yes, you can do phone calls, and that's all part of the process anyway. What you're missing is that one-on-one interaction in purpose, not only just changing drills on the fly during a workout, but whiteboard action in the room with the coach breathing down your neck. There's a lot of subtleties that get lost in the way this process has to go forward for these teams and these prospects. And that's a lot of why you heard about some of the GMs wanting to push the draft back in an effort to get past this so that they can have some contact again. If they delay the draft a month or two, they're hoping to get a little bit more interaction with guys and get back to what is their normal process to have those things checked off the list before they get to having to make selections. So what does this do now? What are teams doing now? Most teams have sent the majority of their people home. Scouts are at home, personnel execs are at home, everything's phone call and email at this point, but you have your film systems and you have your iPads or whatever the equipment is that the team delivers to its personnel department, its scouting department to use. So you take that home and you're going back over film And maybe the executives have a taller order now because they don't have that same interaction to have the area scouts and the national scouts walk them through what they found on a player already. And there's going to be arguments to be had about who feels X guy is a first round grade, who feels he's a third round grade, the quote unquote pounding on the table type scenarios. Those things are usually done in a room across a table. Everybody throw your hat in the ring and see what happens. It just changes the whole dynamic. And that doesn't mean that it can't work. I'm sure teams will still make good choices. In particular, I feel like the Chiefs know where they're going, and I think they have a very good plan for what they want to do. Yes, there's the questions about the players they already possess in Jones and Watkins, but that's going to sort itself out eventually. It comes back to how are you going to make your determinations for this draft? And this Chiefs team in particular, I feel, has probably a leg up because they've been so united in getting to this Super Bowl and getting this championship under their belts that I think they can do those remote things better. I think that they can go back to the film and understand better as an organization, as a scouting department, as a personnel department, how you all work together and where it all comes in and meshes back up to where you're going to be at. So that's how they're going to move forward right now. Will some of these restrictions be lifted for the health crisis and allow them to get back to business as usual? Maybe in a condensed time frame, but maybe it happens. Maybe it doesn't. We're going to have to see. We're going to have to see how that progress goes and if they're able to do anything to try to compensate for it if they get to that point. Draft day is a month away at this point. There's a lot to be done there, but it does make the things that you have, the T's that you've crossed, the I's that you've dotted, the things that you have under your belt, it makes them more important. It makes you rely on your film analysis from the first time more. It makes you go back to it, quite frankly, and spend a lot of hours going over, cross-referencing different scouts on different guys. I don't know exactly how the Chiefs go about it, but some personnel departments do that automatically where you flip and you change regions and a second scout looks at the first scout's normal slew of prospects. Maybe there's other changes that they're going to go through to try and rely on that. If you did get data from the combine or there are plenty of people that didn't run at all, but if you have combine data on players, that reinforces what they are capable of, and that gives you something concrete you can hold on to in making your evaluation. You'd like to confirm that. You'd like to see that put into motion in your practice facility, but if you don't get that chance, you have to go back and rely on that as well. So this process is a little bit tossed up in the air. It's going to change the way business is done here for the next bit. And probably all through the summer, depending on when OTAs and off-season workouts are actually available to be done. We're going to have to see how health-wise everybody goes, and I hope that you guys are staying healthy and taking care of yourself. Stay at home, stay quarantined. I know the Kansas City area is locked down. All over the country, there's lockdowns. I'm stuck here in my mountain hideout as usual, so not a whole lot of change for me except for the kids are home. So I hope you guys are healthy and staying safe. Keep that up. I'll keep giving you more ideas about what's going on in the world of football, but for today, enjoy your Friday. Take it easy out there and enjoy the simpler things in life. Your family being home, and football is going to be there. Well, more for you over the weekend, the podcast and all that. Check out Athletic Matrix on rogueapc.com and use that code RGR20 for a discount. Appreciate you guys checking it out and checking these as they come up. And I'll talk to you next time.